Welcome to the Practiceology 7 Questions in 7 Minutes podcast. I'm your host, Paul Wright. In this podcast, we share the secrets of elite allied health business ownership and teach you the strategies, tactics, and mindset needed to grow a highly profitable and successful allied health business that works without you. If you'd like to work directly with the Practiceology team and receive personal coaching and mentoring to help you earn more, work less, and enjoy your life as a health business owner, visit mypracticeology.com to find out more and apply.
All right, today's episode of the Practiceology 7 Questions in 7 Minutes podcast. I've dug up my old mate, Neil Fairley. Neil, thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Yeah, pleasure, Paul.
Neil and I go back a long way. Today he's going to talk about innovative employment models and in his 7 minutes. Neil's background, he's an expert in creating modern workforce engagement solutions. At Contractors, which is Neil's company, he and his team work with businesses to enable lawful and compliant deployment of non-employment-based individuals, which is a very hot topic with this contractor versus employee world. For more than 15 years, he and his team have refined their non-employment-based proprietary framework, resulting in the ability to create modern workforce strategies for many diverse segments. And he's going to talk about that today. And I did have a laugh because Neil was in originally our programs, must have been 8 or 9 years ago now. We did a lot of stuff back then and then we've reconnected. Yep. So Neil, but with all this experience with contractors and employees, and I say this to my guests on the podcast, can you deliver it, Neil, in 7 minutes?
Yes, I can.
Well, great. Okay, well, that's
Thanks,
easy. All right, well, the timer will start. And you're ready to go, champion?
Sure.
All right, well, right. Neil, who's your ideal client at Contractors?
Okay, there's a number of them. It could be a business that may be under pressure to raise wages, but doesn't have capacity to do that. Or it could be a business that's wanting some relief from inhibitors created through the award structure. Or it could be a business that wants to engage contractors compliantly. We have an alternative method of engagement that can deal with all of those situations.
Because it's common, and that's common in allied health, this contractor employee thing. Question 2 then, with about 6.5 minutes left. So what's the problem you solve for these guys now? How do you help them?
Well, we solve the problem of how to ethically engage labour outside the restrictions that are imposed by many industrial relations regulations, award considerations, and the ATO restrictions. The managed contractor option allows a great deal of flexibility in the deployment of labour in a different genre.
So our problem is essentially wanting to employ people on not just having to use an employee model, essentially various ways. Okay.
Yep.
So question 3 then, Neil, about 5.5 minutes left. What are the typical symptoms business owners experience when they've got this contractor issue? What are the problems?
So, look, there may be pressure from workers wanting pay increases when money and margins are tight. So there is an option there where you can actually pay people more and, in fact, save a business money. But there's also fear associated with the changes to casualisation laws and many of the things that are happening in the industrial relations space right now.
Okay, so mistakes, mate. Question 4 then. When we're trying to solve this contractor-employer model, what are the mistakes you've seen business owners make when they're trying to solve them?
Yeah, look, that's an interesting question, Paul. In many cases, they take advice from very well-meaning HR and IR consultants who do not really understand the ways to lawfully engage non-employment-based labour. They take that advice at face value, and sometimes there's some errors and omissions in that. There is also some belief among, I guess they're called urban myths surrounding what an Australian business number actually means and how you can lawfully contract labour, and also the common mistake relating to superannuation payments.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, don't you? How often do you speak to your accountant or a friend or something who aren't necessarily up to speed with all these things? So you mistake, and it's a great mistake that we go to the wrong source for information.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah,
so question 5, About 3 and a bit minutes left. So what's a valuable free action there? What can our listeners do themselves to help them with this contractor employee issue? What's the best thing to start?
Again, that's an interesting question. I mean, you can check legislation, but some of the most interesting reading about the errors and omissions with deploying contractors is in the what was called the Black Economy Task Force report. It really hit home. We, in fact, spent a lot of time with the task force putting together information for them, and it's a good read, although I know that it's changed its name now, and for the life of me, I can't remember what.
The Black Economy Task Force.
Task Force. Yeah, it's interesting reading.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's nighttime reading. You sit that by the bed, and away you go.
Yeah. I've got a copy of it that I often read for fun.
But is this classified as black economy? So the contractor employee thing, is that part? Because I always thought black economy is just the cash.
No. It was a very broad-based investigation, and a lot of it centred on the misunderstanding of what an ABN actually is. It's not a business license, as an example. And if you have a look at the report, it outlines a lot of the issues that are out there, particularly the urban myths, and they're still looking for this sort of non-compliance.
Wow,
interesting.
Right. Question 6 with a couple of minutes left. So what's a valuable free resource now? How can you help our listeners and viewers? What do you got for them?
Okay, well, there's two things. If they're under pressure to lift employment pay rates, we can run through our cost of employment calculator with a business, so they can actually look at the real total cost of employment and then do a comparison against managed contracting. It's quite interesting. The results show that there are significant savings. Or if they're concerned about a current situation with contractors within their business, look, we're happy to do a no obligation compliance assessment, and in fact using the calculator is also without any obligation, and all we need is some accurate data from that business and run, because they then own the numbers, not us.
Great. And guys, how do you get that, Neil? How do they find that and get that from you?
Well, look, they can contact me direct via email. That's Neil, Neil, at contract, CONTRACTRIGHT, one word, .com.au, or give me a call on the mobile, 0403 090 126.
Beautiful. And Neil did that with our VIP group a couple of weeks ago, so it's worthwhile going through that calculator, because it's eye-opening to what you are spending on employees at the moment. Right, Kristen, mate, we got a last question about a minute to go. What's the one question I should have asked you, Neil, that would give great value to our audience today?
The question should have been, if I'm a business person under pressure to pay employees more money, is it lawful to convert them to managed contracting?
Ooh. Is it?
Yes.
So, and you're talking about, and when you explain managed contracting, especially, but it's an arm's length contract arrangement. It's not
correct.
They're not contracted to you. It's a different model.
Yes, exactly. And look, the thing is that it needs to be done properly. There's no question of that. You've got to have volunteers. You can't force people. But the nub of it is to save money and pay the people more money. And that's the way it works.
Love it. Now, where do they find you again? Give us your email address. Where do they find you to get this resource?
Neil at contractright.com.au or 0403 090 126.
Head up, Neil, guys. I've been involved with Neil for a long time now, and he just gives alternative models to what you may be currently thinking about with employees versus contractors. I love what he's done. Neil, thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Paul. Good to see you again.
Fantastic. See you guys in the next episode.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Practiceology 7 Questions in 7 Minutes podcast. For more episodes and to subscribe, rate and leave a review, head over to iTunes. And if you'd like to increase your health business profits, reduce your personal work hours, and spend more time with your family and friends, you can find out more about the Practiceology Mentor Program at mypracticeology.com.